Hi, I am just going to discuss with you real quick the basics of reading your yarn label. This is what comes around the yarn, a skein of yarn usually. You have the brand name here, the cost. If you go over here, a lot of times they'll include a pattern, and this is the picture of the pattern included. Sometimes it's only in crochet, sometimes it's only in knitting, and if you're lucky, it will be in both. And then you have down here a lot number. When they dye the yarn will get a lot number depending on the location where they dyed the yarn. Every now and then, I've only had this happen once, but if you get two dye lots, sometimes they might not be the exact same shade. I've only had that happen once. Usually they're pretty good about being the same color, but if that happens, you just let them know, and usually they'll exchange it for you for the same dye lot. You have the color name is black for this one. And then there's this part right here. This is what you'll be looking at most when you're looking at your yarn labels. You'll be looking for yards, meters, how much yarn is in your skein, so you can determine like if my pattern called for 1,000 yards, well then I'd probably want to get 3 or 4 of the skeins so that I'd have enough to complete the work. Down here you'll see the type of weight of the yarn. This one is a weight of 4, a medium. And then you have all your washing, whether it can be washed or dried or ironed and things like that. Over here you have a picture with knitting needles and a picture with crochet hook, and these are telling you what size is recommended to start with when you're trying to get a gauge. And a gauge swatch, they're saying if you use a knitting size needle, it's a size 5.5 millimeter or US 8, that you should be able to do 18 stitches by 23 rows and get a 4 inch by 4 inch square or 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters for your gauge. If you start with that size and it comes out too big, then you'll want to either go to a smaller needle size, or if it comes out too small, then you'll want to go to a larger needle size. So this is not, you don't have to use this size. This is just the recommended size to start out with when you're trying to reach a gauge. Same thing for the crochet. They recommend using a 5.5 millimeter or a US I9. If you do 12 single crochets and 15 rows, then your gauge should come out to a 4 inch by 4 inch square or a 10 centimeter by 10 centimeter square. Again, it's just a guide. You don't have to go with this size. In fact, as a rule of thumb, when I am doing regular crochet, yes, I'll start with the size that they recommend, and it usually works for me. If I'm doing Tunisian crochet, though, a lot of times I will bump it up to 3 sizes larger. So if it's a 5.5 millimeter, I'll usually jump it up to an 8.0 millimeter. So it's just a personal preference. It's just a recommended option to get you started. And again, it just says the recommended option down here in writing as well. And then right here, it says 100% acrylic. That's the type of yarn that this was. Acrylic means it's a synthetic yarn, a synthetic fiber. If you have there are people that are allergic to synthetic yarn, so you want to make sure that it has all natural fibers in there, like cotton, things like that. If there's actually a lot of people that are allergic to wool, so just make sure if you're making a gift for someone that they're not allergic to any type of yarns, because then they wouldn't be able to wear it. So this is where you would see what type of yarn, whether it's got natural fibers, synthetic fibers, and as you knit and crochet more, you'll find your personal preference, what you prefer working with, the softness of the yarn, the way that it knits up, the way that it washes, things like that, and how long it lasts. So that is the basics of what a yarn label is and the information that's provided on one. Sometimes I was lucky in this one, they actually put the recommendation for both a knitting and a crochet. Sometimes it will only have knitting or it will only have crochet. So then you'll just kind of have to wing it and figure out what works for you. If you have any other questions, please feel free to leave a comment